All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So it's the first Sunday of football season. I'm freaking pumped. We still have a couple hours before kickoff here. So I wanted to go over this quick little article here on the NFL Network by Ian Rappaport regarding Joe Douglas and his current contract. So the actual title of the article is Jets GM Joe Douglas entering the final year of his contract with no extension signed prior to the 2024 season. And typically, if the organization wants to keep these guys in place, not necessarily just, talking about the Jets here, but in any team or in most cases, if they have like their guys that they feel comfortable with, they typically get them under contract, signing extensions before the last season of their deal, right? Obviously, we see that with coaches as well. So Rappaport goes on to say that the New York Jets are heading into the 2024 season with Joe Douglas in an increasingly unique position. Sources say Douglas, who signed with Gang Green to great fanfare in June of 2019, is entering the final year of his contract, a rare GM who did not sign an extension prior to his deal expiring. All sides are comfortable with this position, sources say. Now, this is just my personal take on it. And look, this is just my guess here, but if the Jets miss the playoffs, if the Jets finish with 6 wins, 7 wins, we finish under 500 again, then I think Douglas is gone and he's just not going to be brought back. So, from Woody's perspective, and same could be said with Robert Saleh, from Woody's perspective, why would he hand Douglas out a 4-year deal, a 4-year extension, a 3-year extension, if there was a chance of letting him go this season, right? Woody doesn't want to lock himself into having to, spend all this extra money on somebody who he's, again, potentially going to fire if things go wrong this season. Now, I don't think that things are going to go wrong. I believe that the Jets will be a playoff squad, and I do think that ultimately Joe Douglas will be brought back. But one thing that we have to talk about, we have to be fair, we have to be objective when talking about Joe Douglas, his positives and his negatives. There's some things that I absolutely love about JD. Number one, the first thing that comes to mind, it does seem like he has a knack for identifying talent that maybe the rest of the NFL isn't as high on, but then once they arrive to the New York Jets, they start performing well, right? We can talk about Michael Carter, late round draft pick, 5th round out of Duke, just a couple years ago. He's entering year 4, and he's already one of the best slot corners in football. Just made him the highest paid guy, the highest paid slot corner in the NFL. That's awesome. We could talk about Tony Adams, undrafted free agent, starting free safety of a win now football team, which has the potential to be the number 1 defense in the game. We could talk about Quincy Williams, right? Waiver pickup from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Has arrived to the New York Jets and is one of the best strong side linebackers in football. Like that's crazy to say. We could even look at this year's roster, right? And point to the number of undrafted free agents that have made the squad. And it's not, it's one thing if you have a couple of undrafted guys make the roster, but you're projected to finish with 4 wins. No, the Jets are projected to win the division. That's not my opinion. That's Vegas odds. Vegas odds are saying that the Jets are the favorite, and yet we have multiple undrafted free agents making this team from the 2024 class. Leonard Taylor, McGregor, and Watts. Now, what's going on with the Reddick situation? When Reddick comes back, we'll probably see one of the UDFAs get relegated down to the practice squad, but the point remains, these guys have shown something, right? Have shown something enough to the coaching staff to strike belief. And this isn't the first time that we've seen something like this before. So that's, for me, the first thing that stands out about Joe Douglas. The next is that this roster is really good right now. Granted, it better be good. This roster better be freaking good. He's been here for years on end, and he's had extra resources compared to the majority of the NFL, right? He's spent ungodly amounts of cash, right? $400+ million since he's taken over. He's had 8 first-round draft selections, right? A ton. And a part of that is because of his ability to work the trade market, right? Trading away Jamal Adams. Somebody who wanted a big deal, who was becoming a headache. Somebody who the Jets felt like, okay, you know what, we can get 2 first round picks back for and more. Let's just go ahead and do the deal. They wind up with all this extra draft capital. Same thing with Sam Darnold, right? The Jets were able to get back a solid return, including multiple picks. So that's another feather in Joe Douglas's cap here, being able to flip players for pretty sizable returns. Now, I do say that with a caveat, because the JFM trade was, in my opinion, just awful, flat out awful. Like, you're trading away, he's a rotational, impactful defensive end, and we're getting a 2026 6th round pick, and then he goes and takes less money with Denver. JFM comes out, on Twitter and says that the Jets didn't offer him anything close to the reduced deal that he got in Denver. Like, what are we doing? But as far as the trades, I would say JD is a net positive in that regard. Now, of course, we do have to bring up the negatives as well. We just mentioned 8 first round picks, $400+ million spent since he's taken over. We have yet to be a 500 football team. That to me is concerning. Now, I love our chances this season, but I mean, when you're looking at these quick turnarounds, right? Stefanski with the Cleveland Browns when he took over, boom, in the playoffs. We could point to last season, right? Houston, second worst team in football. They were just spiraling for years. They bring in the right guys, boom, they're in the playoffs, and they look like a top 4 AFC, top 4 team in the AFC for the foreseeable future. We could talk about the Indianapolis Colts, right? Bottom 4 team in football, not last season, but the year prior. They get their guys in year 1 of Shane Steichen. They're battling for a playoff berth in the last week of the year, playing meaningful football in December with a backup quarterback in Gardner Minshew. Like, you're looking at these turnarounds, it's pretty damn crazy. And even though we're at this point now, I'm still not just going to sweep under the rug all of these years where the Jets have just, struggled, right? That first year of Gase, under 500, keeping Gase for whatever reason. That was essentially the tank year, and we won those 2 games at the end of the season against the Rams and the Browns, and we ended up with the 2nd overall pick, right? Then the rebuild with Saleh that first year, the 2nd year, the 3rd year, which was last year, now year 4, so there's the bottom line is I am tired of losing, right? I'm tired of losing. And Joe Douglas did walk into this organization with a clean slate. This team had all of their draft picks. They weren't strapped for draft picks. They weren't, one of these teams kind of like Canales walking with Carolina. I don't have a first round pick. We should have the 1st overall pick this season. We don't have it. It's Chicago's, so he had his draft picks. He walked in with $90 million in cap space, $85 million in cap space, a lot of cash to spend on the roster. It's a results business, right? Douglas has been here long enough. This team should be a 500 football team with Rodgers, without him. We need to be making steps in the right direction here. That's the bottom line. I think the second thing that just kind of gets me about Douglas is that it really seems like there's a real lack of a proactive approach. Now, this season, it does feel better. It almost kind of feels like he's learned from his mistakes. I could point to coming right out of the gate, signing a backup quarterback. We didn't have one last year. Boom, Tyrod Taylor on the roster. Oh, we really struggled at tackle last season. We really struggled on the offensive line. We're going to go out and draft Ola. We're going to trade for Moses. We're going to sign Tyron Smith, sign John Simpson. We're Laken Tomlinson. Not good enough. We're going to move on, bring in Simpson from Baltimore. We can talk about, here's another example of it. Trying to get ahead of a situation. Michael Carter, we don't want you playing on the last season of your deal without any security. You're one of the best slot corners in football. You're homegrown. Let's make it happen. Boom, the extension's done. That's the stuff I like to see. Getting ahead of situations so you don't have to worry about it later on. Because we've seen time and time again in the past where it's just like, is the thought even crossing the organization's mind, right? I mean, we can look at Bryce Huff, right? Perfect example. This whole Hassan Reddick mess of a situation. Like, it's just so weird. Not signing a backup quarterback last season. Not really showing any sort of urgency to win football games or to improve the roster. throughout the course of last season, after Rodgers went down, it just kind of felt like the organization threw their hands up and was just like, well, that's the year. That's the year. Tons of free agent signings that just simply have not worked out. Again, this is just me looking at the facts here. We have to talk about the positives. We have to talk about the negatives. But I mean, I don't even want to go down the list of the free agents that just have simply not worked out. Just a couple that come to mind: Carl Lawson, Laken Tomlinson, Dalvin Cook, Adrian Amos, Corey Davis. I don't want to get too negative here, but there's been lots and lots of free agents that just have simply not worked out. And then last but not least, with Douglas, I just feel like it's worth mentioning. Lots of misses in the draft, right? Becton's on another team. Zach Wilson is on another team. Elijah Moore's on another team. Michael Carter's on another team. The 2019 draft class, outside of Ashton Davis, is pretty much completely gone. Which was Douglas's first class. 2020 again. Whenever you miss up at the top of the draft with a quarterback, it's going to take its toll. Brutal, right? Even again, the second round pick from that season, Elijah Moore, gone. Michael Carter, the following pick, gone. Lots and lots of misses in the draft, and I feel like that is, and it's not to say every pick is a miss, right? Clearly not. AVT. We'll see what happens with Olu and Will McDonald, but Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, those are the big three. But at the same time, those were like ask yourself, did you like those players before the draft? Would everybody was pumped up. Everybody knew those players were going to, come in and be NFL starters at the very least. In the case of Sauce Gardner, he was considered one of the rarest athletes at the cornerback position of all time coming out. And Breece Hall was, far and away the RB1, the clear-cut RB1 in that class. But I did like the value of getting him in the second round. So, when we look at the big picture here, Douglas has hit on some picks, but he's missed on a bunch too. And I think this season, this is the showcase, right? 2024 is the showcase. Playoff expectations, playoff mandate. That's kind of my mindset. I'm not saying I'm right. That's just my opinion. That's just my personal take. If the Jets finish with 5 wins, if the Jets finish with 8 wins, 7 wins, I wouldn't be opposed to having conversations about changing the regime. It's just been too long. We all know about the playoff drought. I don't even want to dive into that because it's football Sunday. I don't want to get depressed here. But look, if we make the playoffs and it's a great season and we potentially make a push and the vibes are right and it really feels as though like this team is one, like everything is just this well-oiled machine working together, everything is in place, then yeah, let's bring them back. So yeah, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Real quick before I end the video, I did want to mention this. So the company Foku reached out, sports merchandise, sports collectibles, and they have this new bobblehead, this limited edition bobblehead, Jets and the Peanuts, right? Charlie Brown and whatnot. And it's only limited to 150. So I'll leave a link down below in the description box if you guys are interested. I know my mom, she loves Charlie Brown and Snoopy and stuff like that. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts. And as always, go Jets.